Hello, it's Coach Mark In Manila here. It's lovely to see you here on this particular success PDF. Right, so what are we talking about today? We're talking about countable and uncountable nouns. So in the OET, whether it be the writing or also the speaking, it's really important that you get that grammar right. Many times when I'm coaching my students worldwide, we hear this so frequently, okay? I know it's confusing, I get it. And of course, for many of you, your native languages do not require you to have things such as a or the in front of certain nouns, okay? So I know it's a huge challenge for you, but please believe me that this will help you save yourself from losing lots of marks, particularly if you're writing. You know, grammatically speaking, when we're writing, it's very clear when we're dropping the a, the an, the, okay? And, well, that's going to cause you a huge problem, right? Now, on this PDF success sheet, you will see here crystallized down, and that's a nice word. Crystallizing something means literally reducing it down to something really pure, okay, and solid. So I've crystallized everything from the OET into something that is easy for you to focus upon in a bite-sized chunk that gets you through all of the fluff that you're reading in other online training programs, perhaps, or manuals that you're using, or even your own research, okay? These are the key words and phrases that have been proven to turn up time and time and time again in OET exams worldwide. So you are guaranteed by focusing on these to really maximize your chances of knowing how to use them correctly, when to say them, and how to write them as well. So firstly, let's start with the countable nouns, okay? So if you're looking at the PDF there, you will see some fantastic examples of how we use countable nouns and which nouns can be countable. So if we're talking about writing a referral letter or something like that, we would say that the patient has had 3 strokes in the last 3 years, for example, okay? Poor patient, right? So when we're saying 3 strokes in the last 3 years, okay, we're very clear that these are countable, okay? But what about uncountable? So uncountable refers to anything that is general, okay? So to say that you have suffered from heart disease, okay, we wouldn't say you have suffered from a heart disease, because A is specific, so it's saying one in this case. A heart disease? No, doesn't work at all. So we're just saying the patient has suffered or is suffering, present continuous if it is still happening, from heart disease. So if I say suffered from heart disease, it means it's indicating that in the past they have suffered from it, but perhaps no longer so. If we say the patient is suffering, we use the present continuous, okay, from heart disease. Again, uncountable noun still, okay, but telling the person who's reading that letter or hearing this that this is an ongoing situation. It has not ceased. It has not stopped, okay? So listen to these words I'm using in this coaching video, please. Write them down. If you hear me using words like ceased instead of stopped, write it down. And I'd like you to then use that yourself when you're practicing out loud. I'd like you to get comfortable with using these more advanced words, because as a medic you're going to be expected to use higher vocab. All right, now with your patients, here's a top tip: perhaps you want to reduce the vocab to more basic. So this is where it's a challenge for many medics, because we're asking you on the one hand to elevate your English, to use words like ceased, okay, to desist, to defer, for example, but then with your patient we're asking you to probably drop it down to what we call more layman's language, which is basic. So we tell the patient to stop smoking, because if we say to cease smoking, it may confuse some patients who do not have an advanced level of English, okay? And we want to keep it as simple as possible. So top tip is you want to be focusing on 2 types of speaking. Yeah, it's harder for you as a medic, right? You are expected to be professional, and with your peers and your colleagues, or when you're writing academic papers, we need you using cease, desist, defer, these higher advanced level words. When you are speaking to your patients, we want you to keep it more to a basic stopping, okay, waiting, reducing, things like this, limiting maybe, but we don't want you to confuse them with higher advanced vocab, okay? So that's really important. So for you, I would like you to focus on both types of speaking to help you maximize your success as a professional going forward. Now let's go back to those uncountable nouns. So we wouldn't say that the patient has had, I don't know, for example, we wouldn't say one heart disease, okay? We wouldn't say they have a heart disease. Same as we wouldn't say about renal failure or kidney problems, okay? We would say they have chronic kidney disease. Okay, we don't say they have a chronic kidney disease. It just does not grammatically work. Okay, so that's how you're going to use them. It's really important for you that you try to remember this as easily as possible. And here's a top tip. If it's general, okay, if it's not specific, it's just a general term or condition like heart attack, okay? Now, let's talk about heart attack. The patient has had a heart attack because it's a specific thing that is happening. So in this case, that is countable. The patient has had a heart attack. Okay, the patient suffers from breathing issues. Now, that's different, right? We don't say the patient suffers from a breathing issue, but we can do. Let me explain. So, if I say the patient suffers from breathing issues, listen, pluralized, the patient suffers from breathing issues. It means generally there is something going wrong with this patient's breathing, okay? If I said the patient suffers from a breathing issue, singular, here, then I'm getting specific. One type of breathing issue. So breathing issues, as in uncountable, is basically a general wide, think of it like a big umbrella, okay? A big spectrum. There can be many reasons for breathing issues. You know, we can say have pulmonary obstructive issues, right? We can have asthma. We can have other issues, okay? We can have bronchitis, we could have pneumonia. There are so many breathing issues. So that is a big umbrella. So in this case, it is uncountable because we're talking about some breathing issues, okay? But if we talk about the patient has a breathing issue, we know we're getting specific, a breathing issue. So for example, it might be asthma. So that's very specific with specific symptoms, etiology, and also treatment. And therefore, when we're getting specific, we turn it down into being a breathing issue, okay? And listen, I drop the pluralization from issues to issue, okay? So this is the way to remember it. If we're talking about a general wide range of things, we often pluralize it, okay? And we talk about it in an uncountable way. So the patient has heart disease, okay? Right, the patient has heart disease. What is that? Is that countable or uncountable? Okay, the patient has heart disease. Okay, so heart disease is uncountable because it is a general term, okay, the disease of the heart, and then there are specific issues that can be caused, and we would say, for example, the patient has heart disease, uncountable, and then we would say specifically narrowing of the aorta, okay. So you can see what I've done there. I've turned it from being uncountable to countable, okay? So heart disease is uncountable, and then the specific issue is, in this case, narrowing of the aorta. Let's try some other examples now. So perhaps you are speaking to the patient or writing a referral letter or perhaps an update to that patient. And you would be talking about when you want to see that patient again. So again, let's look at countable and uncountable ways that we do that. So for example, if you said, I'd like to see you monthly, okay, I'd like to see you monthly. What is that? Is that countable or uncountable? Okay, if you are somebody who's just shouted at me and said it is uncountable, you're correct. I'd like to see you monthly, okay? So I haven't said a monthly, okay? I've said monthly, okay? But what happens if I wanted to use it as a countable way? I'd say I'd like to see you once a month. Here, we change it completely, once a month. So we change monthly to month, and we go once a month, twice a month, 3 times a month. Now, here's a little sideway move on that. So we say once, twice. Sometimes you might hear people say thrice a month, but very unusual. But we can say once, twice, thrice. But then after that, we don't have fourth, fifth, size. I don't know, whatever you would word that as. But you know what I'm saying. We have once, twice, thrice, and then fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, or 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? So I'd like to see you twice a month, Mark, okay? That's great, okay? Or I could say I'd like to see you twice monthly, okay? That's another way that we can do it. But in general, if I say I'd like to see you monthly, in that case, it is just monthly, okay? But once a month, twice a month, 3 times a month. Let's talk about it when it comes to prescribing. So if you're going to write a prescription, you might say take the tablets twice a day. So again, what is that? It's countable. Twice a day or 2 times a day. So take the tablets twice a day, take the tablets 2 times a day. Okay? 2 days here. Okay? So this is what we're saying. It is countable. Now let's go a bit further into asking the patient questions or perhaps writing. Okay, so if you are writing any questions down here, you might want to ask the patient or ask the referring specialist to check how frequently the patient has these issues. So for example, we might say to somebody or write down, please can you assess how frequently the patient is having chest pain? Now again, what would that sentence be? Is that countable or uncountable? Okay, you're right. Chest pain in general is basically an uncountable thing, okay? So we wouldn't say, I would like you to assess how frequently the patient has a chest pain. That's strange because we're making it sound like there is a specific type of chest pain there, okay? So I would like you to assess how frequently the patient has a chest pain. Okay, strange grammar, so we wouldn't use it. We just say how often the patient has, how frequently the patient has or experiences. Listen to these words, people. I could say have, or I could say experience, okay, or suffers, or endures, or encounters. So listen to those words, write them down, people, okay? And then I'd like you to use them after this session. Practice speaking out loud after this session using these words that I'm giving you. Listen to how a native speaker is wording this. And I'm giving you the more advanced version so that you can really get good at using higher level vocab and a variety of vocab. So instead of when you're writing, repeating the same words, how often have they had the chest pain or chest pain? Okay? How often have they had fainting spells? Okay, if you keep writing that, you're going to sound repetitive. So you might say, how often have they experienced chest pain? How frequently do they encounter fainting spells? And when you put it all together, it helps you sound far more advanced, and that is going to help you achieve the higher marks. And plus, in addition, it's going to give you great confidence in your own ability in your speaking, because you're going to sound, and when you write, look so much better, and that's going to just encourage you more, and you're going to be able to maximize your speaking abilities and your writing abilities in any situation. Let's go a bit further with those referral letters. Okay, so when you are describing in your letter in the OET, you need to be specific about the issue that you're referring for. So let's say you are referring this patient with chest pain to the specialist. Okay, so the letter will be saying that you have treated, Coach Mark, for example, and you've assessed that there are some differences on his echocardiogram, and you would like the specialist to check for any potential issues, including narrowing of the arteries. So again, narrowing of the arteries is a general term, okay? You don't want to be checking for a narrowing of the arteries. That's kind of strange. Okay, it's getting very specific. So narrowing of the arteries you would just use as a general term. But if you were writing that letter later, perhaps the specialist writing back, you might say there is a narrowing of the arteries when we're getting specific. But because you're asking in general at this moment, you're not sure if there is that, you would just say, okay, I would like you to check for narrowing of the arteries. And finally, let's talk about when you are referring to perhaps request some procedures, some surgical intervention. So, for example, a hip replacement or a knee replacement. You would write that referring letter, but you would be saying something like, I'm referring Mrs. Jones for hip replacement surgery. Okay, so listen to that. Is that countable or uncountable? For hip replacement surgery is uncountable, right? Okay. If you say for a hip replacement surgery, no, doesn't work, okay? But Here is a exception. So when we talk about surgeries, we could say also, Mrs. Jones, she's had a hip replacement surgery, and she would go to you for your follow-up, and she would say, I have had a hip replacement. I have had a knee replacement. Okay, so you can hear how we use it depending on whether we say surgery or just replacement. Okay, so try to practice with all of the vocab that you've heard me use in this particular coaching session. These are mini micro coaching sessions. If you really want one-to-one coaching, I can absolutely help you. We can do 30 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever you need, how frequently you want to, and you can really practice your OET speaking. We can also look at your writing. You can upload your writing to me and we can go through it in our session together. Or you can even take an advantage of just sending me your speaking, sending me your writing without having a session booked, and I will look at it and get responses back to you within a couple of working days, so you get feedback that works around your very busy schedule as a medical professional. Okay, so good luck everybody. Let me know what you think to this. Please reach out to me. The details are all in the PDF. Also, check out on my store all of the other fantastic range of PDFs coming your way very soon for your success. It's really going to help you. I want to help as many medics worldwide who have helped me to help you to help other people. Stay safe everybody and keep going.